Welcome to the show. This is TED Talks Too Much. And we've got another great one for you today. I am Ted Moss, ex-parenting book author, stand-up comedian, and your host. We are located in the OK Boomer Studios just outside of Flint, Michigan. That's right, Flint! Michigan's water wonderland, where they are still today wondering when they'll get some clean water. But while we all wait for that to happen, let's talk. And on today's show, we got Mr. Tim Finkel, a young up-and-comer in the Detroit comedy community. He's a teacher, a world-class bicyclist, a yo-yo expert, and he tells me he's a good husband and a fine father to what he calls a short sleeper. We'll hear all about that in just a sec.
My kids are good looking though, they are. They get that from their mom. My wife is beautiful. I really married up in that respect. She was 22 years old when I met her. That was hot. She's 36 years old now. And she's the woman that nags me all the time. It's not as hot anymore. It's hard to see that beauty in there anymore. Sometimes it's just like abstract colors and shapes with like sounds coming out of it. It's like a Picasso painting. I don't even hear her voice anymore. It's like the teacher from Charlie Brown. It's like, did you make the kids brush their teeth? You never make them brush their teeth. Don't make me be the bad guy. I recently got an Apple Watch. No joke. When she starts nagging me, my Apple Watch now says, just breathe, man. Just breathe. That's a true story.
Okay, on today's show, we got a very funny young man. He is one of the rising stars of the local comedy scene. He's going to talk to us about jobs, kids, comedy. He's a really nice guy, but I tell you what, he is as driven as the day is long. And I'm very pleased to have him as one of my comedy buddies. So let's give an OK Boomer Studio welcome to my young friend, Mr. Tim Finkel.
Something like that. I don't want to be thinking about that stuff while I'm talking to you. This is a big date for me today.
Well, thanks for coming in. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, Ted?
I'm doing great. Thanks. I didn't know if you were coming. It was, a few weeks ago that we started out trying to figure out how to get you in here.
Yeah, I evaded you for a while. I'm sorry about that, Ted. Yeah. I just got a busy life.
Yeah, well, I'm used to that. Most women I date evade me for a while. Once in a while, I get them cornered, but no, it's good to have you. I'm glad you came in. And are you still working? What's going on with you? Are you, do you have a day job?
Yeah, I'm a teacher, unfortunately. I've been doing that for about 18 years now. And
well, hold it. You were a teacher, but then you were not a teacher, I thought. No?
No, I've always been a teacher.
Yeah, but didn't you tell me you got a job in sales or something?
I tried to escape it for a little while. And I had been interviewing with some curriculum sales companies, things like that.
Yeah, and somebody wanted you, didn't they?
Yeah, I had a job offer this past summer. That was a hard decision to make, too. We were, my family was in Hawaii when we got the, got the offer. It was on a Monday. Had to let them know by a Friday. So while we're enjoying this nice family vacation, I had to make this huge monumental life decision.
Yeah. That sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I was kind of running the numbers. I got about 11 more years till I can leave the business with a full pension.
Oh.
And so I kind of opted to do that. The job would have been great. It was a great offer. It was making more money than I make now.
But you'd work all year long. You wouldn't have that 3-month break in the summer.
Yeah.
All those holidays off. You wouldn't be on the same schedule with your kids.
Yep. And my wife is a teacher as well. But she taught year-round her entire career because she teaches students with autism. But she recently moved to a new job where she has her summers off. So this past summer was our first summer we ever had off together, and that was very nice. And then I was going to take a job where we were never going to have summers off together again. So kind of opted out of it. Also with stand-up, just looking at
how much I'd be working, I was just thinking, I don't know how much time I'll be able to do that as well.
Right. Well, stand-up's bigger in the winter than it is the summer.
Sure. But just, teaching's pretty easy, especially after you've done it for 18, 19 years. You can kind of go into autopilot.
Yeah, I'll bet you do. What grades do you teach?
Well, I spent the first 18 years of my career teaching high school, but I teach students with severe emotional impairments.
Oh my gosh. You hold it. Your wife teaches kids with autism. Yeah. You do emotional impairments.
Yeah.
And then you come home to your children. Yeah. They must be a breeze after being at school all day with these challenged kids.
No, you got nothing left at that point. You come home and you're an absolute complete asshole to them. And then you go to bed feeling horribly guilty.
Yeah. But I'll be nice to the students tomorrow.
Yeah. Literally my life right now, when I'm not on stage or here talking to you, my life right now is literally behavior management from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. And that's why I drink now. And often.
I don't know. I think that'd be very challenging. It's got to be the most interesting type of teaching job if you're going to teach young kids. I mean, if you aren't in college and teaching people that are really going to pursue whatever you're teaching them, I think challenged kids is going to be probably a lot more interesting than it would be just to teach the same math class to 8th graders year after year.
Yeah, I was a kid who kind of deviated from the norm growing up. And
how's that?
Not that I was a bad kid, but I was an extremely mischievous kid. I got into quiet trouble off on the side that my parents never really knew about and that sort of thing. And
do you want to share any of that? Is there anything in particular that kind of stands out as, that was kind of a big one?
Yeah, I may have to circle back on that question and think a little bit more deeply on it.
We'll do a couple shots and see what you think.
I should add in the caveat, too, though. I went to Lutheran parochial schools my entire life, so being the bad kid in a parochial school kid is like your honor student, like here in Flint, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, you'd probably be the president of the class or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, like I always identify more with the kids that were a little more challenging and that sort of thing. And to be honest with you, I don't know if I could teach regular ed anymore. I had a buddy who, he was a Detroit police officer, and I remember talking to him one time, and he's like, Tim, I couldn't go to like Bloomfield Hills and be a police officer anymore. Like I'm jaded now at this point. And that's kind of how I am with teaching.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
I would like to be a teacher, but when I sold my business, I went down to the local business business school. Actually, it was Baker Business School, and I asked him if I could teach some sort of class, at some level, in that I had owned a business and was very successful and ran it for 30 years, and teach these kids that are going to just the basic business school, the basics of running a business, because we built it from nothing up to a business where we were selling, $8 million worth of merchandise a year. And I thought I had some value, and they wanted me to go back to college to get my master's before I taught. So I thought, I'm not going to do that. Yeah. After 30 years, I don't want to go read a book somebody wrote, and maybe they never ran a business, to tell these kids how to run a business now.
Yeah.
So
learning how to be a teacher, you can only do in a classroom. And unfortunately, you do have to get the degrees and things like that. And I have a master's degree, and I would never, at this point in my life, ever go back to college for anything that has to do with education whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just recycled ideas and that sort of thing. And I'm all for learning new things, but I would never go back to school at this point for anything education related.
What do you think about that old saying, if you can't do it, you teach it? Do you think there's any merit to that?
I've met plenty of people like that. Yes, Ted.
Well, you know what?
I know this is a cliche, but our gym teacher is the textbook example of that. And he'll tell you.
No physical ability at all.
Oh, yeah. He'll tell you I'm a complete idiot. Like, I can barely read and write. And look at this empire I built.
Just like studying phys ed. That's great. You know what? I think the teachers are going away. I think if you look out there 20 years... all the redundancy in teaching, there's not going to be 10,000 third grade teachers in Michigan teaching the same class. All those rote subjects are going to be online, and all the students are going to be able to learn those subjects at their own pace. So you don't have to teach to the middle of the crowd where you're slowing down the fast ones and you're speeding up the slow ones, and everybody can kind of do it step by step. So you might be really advanced in math, you might be slow in history or whatever. And I think all those basics are going to go away. They're all going to be online, and they're only going to have classes for the kids that absolutely need them, like your students, or those activities like public speaking and phys ed classes where you need to have a group of people. But everything else, which is going to be more than half of education of, K through 12, is going to be online, and we're going to have a whole bunch of vacant schools.
It'll be interesting the picture you just painted is a very utopian idea, and in an ideal world, we would be able to tailor individualized education that well. We have a ways to go in our country before we can do that.
My daughter golfed in college, and more than half of her education was online because if you golf, it's not a one-day event like a football game. Mm-hmm. It's a 2-day event plus a practice round. So really it's a 3-day event plus travel. So it's a 4-day event. And they had, I'm going to say 12 meets in the fall and another dozen in the spring. 24 times they're gone away from college for 4 days. So most of her education, or a lot of it, was done online somehow. And I can't imagine that couldn't happen for high school kids too.
Oh, no, it certainly can. But what education is, though, today extends so much further beyond just the subjects now, especially with the population I work with. The majority of students I work with are well below the poverty line, and it's almost to a certain extent some days where education is the secondary thing.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's about socializing the kids, and
we wear many hats. We're social workers, we're psychologists.
How do you feel about that? Do you think that's your responsibility?
That's the bet I've made for myself, Ted. So I have to sleep in it. It's the only thing I've ever known because it's the kind of teaching I've always done. I've always worked with students with severe emotional impairments, and not to say that you have to come from a perverse background to be in that category. But in particular, the district I worked in, the majority of my career, most of the students came from pretty severe poverty. And so what you're talking about, it would be great, but we have kids coming to school who don't have their basic needs met. So they didn't eat the entire weekend.
So it's kind of a different social program at that point.
Oh yeah.
You're raising kids.
We're teaching them how to be human beings. Yeah.
What do you think about neighborhoods? Because we used to get a lot of socialization, is that how you say it? Socialization from just hanging out in the neighborhood. That is, all the kids were playing on the streets all day, every day. When I was 4 years old, I'd walk out the door at 9 a.m. and maybe I'd come home for lunch and maybe I wouldn't. I'd definitely come home for dinner. But I would hang out with, there was 4 kids in every house. I'd hang out with all these kids, and whoever parent happened to be at the house we were at, they'd be the one to control us and tell us what the proper behaviors were. But nowadays, you drive through subdivisions, no kids playing outside. And if they are, they're playing outside, and it's very structured, and it's with their parents.
Yeah, there's a lot of refereeing going on with parents now. A lot of helicoptering. Yeah,
you go to the park, and there's a kid and a parent, and there's 2 kids and a parent. And so the whole dynamic of kind of cutting kids loose and letting them learn on their own has gone away. I don't know if that's good or bad.
Yeah, it's tough. A lot of people are afraid now. They're afraid. They're afraid to do that. They're afraid to let them loose. I feel what you're saying, though, community is absolutely imperative. It's a basic need of human beings. Yeah. It's community and to have a connection to other people. It's the reason why you and I are sitting here today.
Because of community?
Yeah. Yes. In comedy, we're part of a community. Right?
We are, yes.
Yeah, we are a community. We're a living, breathing community. And, the satisfaction I get out of doing comedy extends well beyond the stage. Yeah. It's with relationships I've made with other comics. It's and what a great relationship to be able to have with another comic. That is so much more special than the majority of relationships you have with everyday human beings.
You're going through the same hell. These people
not only that, you could, how like emotionally refreshing is it to know that you can be extremely candid with another person and know that for the most part they're inoffendable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
At least the good comics.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. That's true.
I mean, I have like a handful of close comic friends of mine that are kind of like on speed text dial, where any random thought I pop in my head,
and you can send
I'll send it. What do you think? You think I got something here?
Yeah.
Some of it will be like, no, not at all. You got to get rid of that.
Yeah. I send my black jokes out to my black friends because that's a very...
They're your consultants.
Yeah.
Right?
And then I send other jokes out to like Billy Reno, and I go, is this funny? And he goes, yeah, that's not so funny.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
Okay,
what an incredible relationship that is to be able to have. It's so healthy for people to not have to shelter their ideas and what they think is funny around other people. When we can be completely open and honest with one another, it's so healthy. And what I've seen in comedy, and the more I've done it, and I was an athlete before I did this, and what I've seen is my ego has gotten smaller as a result of doing comedy, but in a very healthy way. Because I realize, the world doesn't revolve around me.
Right.
You realize to see what is funny, how to mine humor out of things, and then the ability to laugh at your own self is so imperative. But I've kind of gone off on a tangent here.
No, I like that.
To get back to your question of community and kids and that sort of thing, there's certainly a lack of community with kids, and part of that is based on opportunity. When you spoke about being a kid and seeing all these neighborhoods, those were your only options. You weren't going to go inside and play a video game that was so real, it was hard for your brain to disconnect from reality and go out in the world. You didn't have a reality inside of your house that you might have been able to view as better than going out and lighting firecrackers in the woods and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's people's jobs, it's their livelihood to create entertainment right now that is so much better than reality, than a kid's life.
That's not good.
So, no, it isn't. It's horrible. So I'm combating this with my oldest son right now. I used to joke before I had kids with my wife that we're going to raise them Amish. But behind every joke is a little bit of truth, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And now that they're here, I'm like, shit, I should have raised them Amish. I knew it.
Look what happened.
Yeah. I mean, we work hard at balancing that. And my entire effort, my entire being goes into my kids. It's the first and foremost, most important thing. And we're not content just plugging them in all day, but left to their own devices.
Yeah.
If we wanted to just give our kid an iPad and just say, sit on it all day, he would fold right into that thing and have a hard time disconnecting from it.
Boy, that's crazy.
Because it is so good now. And I think of how much better it's going to get in the future.
So what do you put a number of hours limit?
Yeah, we do. Well, right now, because my wife and I are teaching our own students and then we're also teaching our kids, we have to be incredibly organized now.
Yeah.
So we set a schedule every day between what we have to do for work and what the kids have to do. And then they have to fulfill all their tasks for the day before they can have the opportunity to play on an iPad or things like that. And then we set a timer. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. I should say this, it gives my wife an extreme amount of anxiety having to deal with it, because she's just fearful that we can just lose them to this whole and
I think a lot of kids are lost to that.
It is, and
there's a lot of 35-year-old kids sitting down in their basement still playing games, dude, that never came out of the tube.
Yeah, you're exactly right. But on the same token, though, it's very important at their age to learn how to manage it, because it's not going away and it's only going to get better. Yeah. I mean, I wrote a joke that I was doing for a while about yelling at my kid to put his hologram away. that's where it's going to be eventually, right? So so you got to learn to manage it as well. So you have to kind of find that in between Amish and where we're at now.
Well, let me ask you this, and this is on topic. You aren't going to believe it, but are you right-brained or left-brained? Do you know?
So whenever I do any form of personality test or anything like that, where you learn different learning styles, you learn all of that, every single time I show up right in the dead center quadrant. Really? Where I have a little bit of an ingredient from everything, but maybe not great at any one of them.
I'm very mediocre. Very mediocre.
No, but I mean, there's skill in that, though. To be able to, there's not a lot of, especially these days, there's not a lot of people who can run a middle ground anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It's pretty hyperbolic now.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm pretty right-brained because I'm pretty creative. I'm pretty artistic. But I called on electrical engineers who are very, very left-brained. Yeah. And I had to make presentations to those guys. So I kind of have a little bit of both. I think everybody has a little bit of both, but it depends on how far to one of the extremes you go. And I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and it seems to me, at least the way I understand it, your right brain is your artistic or your prey. It's the prey part of your animal, that you are always looking around for something unusual to happen. If you hear a noise and you turn to it really quick, that's your right brain. That you're fearful of being a prey, so you're always on the alert and you're always looking for the chaos, the thing that's out of place. That's your right brain. Your left brain...
Yeah, I got a quarter cup of that.
Yeah. Your left brain is your engineering, right on track, everything lined up brain. So if you're driving the car and somebody's not obeying the rules of the road and you get road ragey, that's your left brain.
Sure.
If you're throwing golf clubs on the golf course, your left brain, because things aren't lined up the way they are. So I think depending on how you respond to chaos, and with a house with kids, there's going to be chaos. There's going to be a lot of that stuff going on. And you can either kind of schedule it away and then expect everybody to stay right on track and then be frustrated if they're off. Or if you're right brain, you can go, hey, look at you went off and started doing this, and see the creativity and kind of go with that. So you think you're a little bit of both? Is your wife the same too, or did she tend to be one way or the other?
She's more right.
She's more okay with chaos?
Yeah. She's a bit of a chaotic mind herself too.
Yeah, well, maybe she's artistic.
Lack of organization, that sort of thing.
Well, you know what? Left brain people can be really messy, and they'll just step over the mess. They pay no attention to it until the mess pushes into them. Like the traffic can be horrid until they push into your plan. Once the mess pushes into yours, and then if you're explosive how you react to it, you're left brained. Yeah. So a tolerating mess is fine because left brain will ignore it and right brain will kind of embrace it.
It's funny that hearing you just talk about this, because it dates you a little bit too.
Does it really?
Well, yeah, because the right brain, left brain thing, it's kind of like a real 80s type notion. Like really?
Jordan Peterson's talking about it right now on YouTube for hours.
Well, I fully believe it, but I think that there's more complex dynamics behind all of it as well.
Really?
But I would definitely agree that I walk that line of both sides, and I'll struggle with both sides of it.
Well, I think I do too. I think I have a little bit of both, but I tend to be a little bit more right, and I'm okay with chaos, and I kind of enjoy it. I'm going to go someplace and see something that's weird and go, oh, look at this. This is cool.
Yeah.
Because it's out of place. Where my ex-wife would go someplace, and she was an art teacher, so you'd think she'd be right brain, but if something was out of order, it would really frustrate her. God.
Here's a question for you. So you were in sales, right?
Yes.
And I feel like... to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the personality that would be more conducive to sales would be someone who exhibits kind of all of those different quadrants.
Well, the truth about sales is people buy from people they like. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like comedy.
Sure.
Rule number one, you got to be likable.
Yeah.
If you aren't likable, you're just wasting your time.
Yeah.
You also have to... be sincere in that you're trying to help people.
Yeah.
I mean, you can sell everybody a car one time, but they aren't coming back unless they really think you're trying to help them. But if you can convey to them that you have a way to create a win-win situation. And I don't think sales is something like you're doing me a favor by buying something from me. Mm-hmm. It's, in my mind, always a situation where I have something I can provide, and if it helps you, whether you're a reseller of it or if you're going to utilize it, if it's the best deal you can get, if it's the best value for your dollar, we should go ahead with this deal. And if I can't show you that, you shouldn't buy it. So that's kind of where I'm at.
And so you would have authentic satisfaction you would receive from knowing that you put someone into a product that was going to make their life better.
No, my satisfaction is from the money.
Yeah.
Actually, the sad thing about sales is if you're really successful, all the awards are really green and they're paper.
Yeah.
And you can't tell people about them.
Sure.
You can't go, hey, I just made $30,000 on this job, because then people resent the hell out of you.
Yeah.
So that's where you get the satisfaction. The reason you put win-win deals together is because you want to stay in business.
Yeah.
And you only stay in business if you're providing the best value for people.
Okay.
And that involves evolving over time, because what people need and want now is not going to be the same as what they need and want later.
Yeah. I worked in a bike shop for a while I was still teaching at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I did sales there. I was a purchaser there, so I purchased all their inventory.
Did people call on you to sell you bikes or parts?
Oh, yeah. I'd go to trade shows and stuff. I helped out with some reps. I do like some trade clinics and things like that.
Yeah.
But I loved it. It was great. I loved, and my customers used to tell me that you don't sell us a bike, you sell us the sport. Yeah. And that was like the greatest compliment to me ever.
No. Well, that's who you want to be. If you want to succeed.
I loved it. Yeah, it was great.
Long term.
So, yeah, I mean, sales is something, maybe down the road.
Yeah. Well,
I'd like to do.
Yeah, because I was in commercial construction.
Yeah.
The people I was selling to were all assholes. I mean,
I could see that.
Well, no, I mean, you don't make it to the top of an electrical wholesale house, or be a top commercial electrical contractor, or be a top commercial general contractor building a high rise or a hotel or a hospital, unless you're kind of an asshole. You got to be a pushy asshole.
Sure.
And so you have to learn to get along with people you don't like. Mm-hmm. Those are the people you're calling on. The people in power often are people you wouldn't like, and you aren't going to hang out with them when you retire or on the weekends. Yeah. But when you go to work, you say, okay, I don't like you personally, but you're the guy in charge, and how can I put together a package that will help you? And if I can, it's good for the people I represent. And you have to be you got to be kind of tolerant. So I have deep tolerance for people, but I'm also brutally frank. I mean, more than I should be. Yeah. I don't sugarcoat a lot of things. I try to be nice, but if I'm out, I'm out. And I don't have an emotional attachment to it. I don't spend a lot of time with happy and sad about those things when I talk to people or when I'm selling things to people. So
I think the older I get, the more I'm realizing I'm kind of an emotional, sappy guy. I am. Young kids will bring that out in you.
You look a little sappy.
That's my first time out of the house in 8 weeks, Ted. This is.
I know. You said you had to come up with an excuse for your wife. Is like you're answering to her about when you can come and when you can go.
It's a lot. We got a lot of moving parts going on at home right now. Like, it's tough to keep the ship afloat. It's a 2-person job right now. It's interesting though, you say about how you were dealing with primarily assholes. So in that job offer I had this summer, it was curriculum sales. So I'd be dealing with principals and superintendents and things like that.
Yeah.
Not to get me wrong, there are some assholes like that, but there's not a lot of assholes who are like, I want to be the very best at helping these inner city kids.
Yeah.
Like their ego's not as involved as much, as building a building.
Yeah, right? That's true. But you know what? The interesting thing is, I know a couple retired college professors. They're real assholes.
Well, that's different, though. College is a business.
Yeah, well, and also, my thought is they went to kindergarten, then they went to elementary school, then junior high, high school, college, then they went back to college, then they went back to college again, then they went back to college to work. They've never been out in the working world. Also, their environment, their whole life has been you're pretty smart, dude.
Sure.
You scored really high. Everybody should be like you. And they think, yeah, I am pretty smart. And then they give them a job where they get to go in and everybody they're mandated to come in. They're either paying in college or in high school, mandated to come in. So you got your audience. It's not like you're a salesman. You're working to get, the time with people. Mandated to come in, and then you wield control over them. You tell them what to do, what not to do. And then once they do it, you judge them. No, you get to say, no, I don't think you did that well. Or you should do it. And so they develop these big egos that they're lording over people. And if you do that decade after decade, and then you go out in the real world and you interact with people, sometimes you're so full of yourself and you're so used to getting your own way, they're hard to deal with.
It's interesting you say that. So there's a major distinction in education between college and then like K-12. And one of them is, and we're getting a little away from this now because we have to have student retention, but one of them is that college is one of the last educational environments where a professor or a teacher can say, oh, you didn't cut the mustard, you're done.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you
can't do that in high school. You can't
not anymore.
fail people.
Not anymore. I'm writing a bit about this right now.
Really? Yeah, you can't flunk people?
No. Well, you can, but you have to. The new model is let's revisit back and see what can we change about the environment on our end to ensure student success. No,
yeah,
so
that wasn't my school.
Just how the real world is, right?
Yeah.
Like if you fail, then your boss goes, well, what can I do? So you get here on time now, right?
Yeah, right.
Just like
that
the real
happens.
world.
Yeah.
But so I'm writing a bit about
what
this.
What can I do where I can buy more from you? Because I didn't buy enough from you last month. What?
Yeah, it's ass backwards. I went for a run the other day. I was listening to Notorious B.I.G. I heard I have a huge affinity to 90s gangster rap. You know that from my act.
Yes.
And there's an intro to a song where everyone knows it. It's the song Juicy. He goes, this album is dedicated to all the teachers who told me I'd never amount to anything. And a light bulb went on in my head, and I'm like, we need more teachers like that again, right? Because Notorious B.I.G. made Ready to Die at 19 years old. And that is an iconic rap album. And think of how many people out there now, like, said, well, why are you so successful? Well, my teachers told me I'd never amount to anything. I mean, they lit a fire under my ass.
Yeah,
my father.
That was my challenge.
Yeah, my father-in-law is one of the hardest working men I know. And
what did he do?
He worked for the automotive industry.
Okay.
Yep. And he told me all the time. My teachers, they used to call me, and I don't know if we can say this anymore, but he goes, they used to call me retarded. They'd tell me, you're never going to amount to anything. You're a piece of shit.
Oh my God.
You're gonna be digging ditches and living off the government. And I go over to his big, beautiful house now, and I think, you're so lucky they told you that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. When I was a freshman in college, my grandfather died. And it was actually predicted by a Ouija board that we were running like 2 weeks ahead of time, which is freaky to start with. But I had to go home. I got a last-minute notification, had to go home for my grandfather's funeral by the same name, Ted Moss. And he had passed away, and the viewing was on Friday or whatever. And I found out about this. It happened really fast. He died on Wednesday. I find out on Thursday. I got to be home Friday. And so I'm going to be home, head home to be with the family. And I had a test coming up Friday in accounting. Well, I went over to see my accounting professor, who was not very fond of me. Now, granted, he had a butch haircut, and this is 1970. I had hair down to my shoulders and used to come to class in army pants, no shoes, no socks, no shirt, smoking cigarettes in the class. So I wasn't on the top of his pyramid as far as who was going to be the successful business person. And I said, look, I can't be here Friday. He said, fine, sit down and take the test now. I said, I am not ready. I really need, I need to study. And he said, no, either that or you flunk it. And he said, who died? And I said, it was my grandfather. By my name, I gotta go. And he started telling me how I'd never make it in business, how I insulted him by being in the class, and all this crap, just personally demeaning. And I'm a pretty passive person most of the time. And I was a love child hippie. I don't want to be adversarial. So I started telling him how he worked for me and the tax dollars my parents are paying.
Oh, you're one of those guys.
And yeah.
You know who my father is?
Well, not only that, but if you knew how to do this shit in business, you'd be out there doing it, not teaching in this third-rate college I'm attending. And so we had a lovely conversation. I flunked the test.
And now look at this empire we're sitting in right now. And he probably drank himself to death because he hated his job.
That's right. When I had my big house, I was texting him pictures when I was on vacation in Hawaii. Yeah. Here, how do you like me
So
now?
your story's reinforcing my argument here.
You know what?
I think I got some meat on the bone for some jokes about this, right?
That'd be a great bit. Yeah. You know what my ex-wife used to say, and I'm only going to say it because she said it, because I would not ever say this on my own. But she said, it wasn't the best and the brightest that opted into being a high school teacher. There's a lot of people that just wanted a part-time job and thought it'd be easy, and so they became teachers. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, to a certain extent. For some people have an absolute passion to teach.
I know that. Yeah, I know a couple of those guys.
Yeah, and I'm not one of them.
Well, the guy that became principal of the junior high school here is so forward-looking about education, and actually my ex-wife's cousin who was running one of the schools down in Detroit, same way. He's just so future-looking and so motivated about what he can do with the kids. And that's great. You need those kind of people. But filtered in there, probably with every job, filtered in there, you got people that aren't doing that great a job. My kids used to complain that, hey, my French teacher's teaching us nothing. We watched a movie three days this week. She's never paying attention. I'm learning nothing in this class. And as a parent, what do you do? Am I supposed to go up there and bitch that she's not teaching? I don't know what to do at that point.
And here's the thing with the population I work with. It's like, if you want to survive in it, you can't be that guy that like wears his heart on his sleeve, because you get told to F off every day. Like, seriously.
By the students or by the teachers?
By the students, their parents.
Yeah.
And so, like, here, this is an interesting story. So, I actually went to a new school district this past year. And
you were transferred? Or
no, I took a different job this year.
Oh, okay.
So, and it's very distinctly different from what I came from. It's a great school district filled with incredible educators that are very devout, like the ones we're talking about.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it is. For them, yeah, they're doing great. And so I went to like a couple in-services at the beginning, and I saw how these teachers behaved versus from where I came, and just the incredible amount of passion that they had behind what they were doing. And this thought occurred to me that they're doing right now their favorite thing. Like, how lucky, how fortunate are they that they get to go to work and do their absolute favorite thing. I kind of fell into teaching by happen chance.
Yeah.
I came from a long line of teachers. But I'll tell you, stand-up is one of my absolute favorite things. And when I got to the point where I started to make some money at it, albeit it's not career-based money, but some money at it, I got to have that feeling like those teachers had at that end service where I'm like, holy cow, someone's going to give me some money to do my absolute favorite thing.
Well, let's talk about what year you got into it, how long you've been doing it, and how it all started for you.
Yeah. So I got into...
Let's do it on mic, as long as we're going to do it.
Can we pause? Can I use the bathroom real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
This
no problem.
I drank about 32 ounces of water on the way here. So.
No problem. You can start any time because the thing's recording. So just make sure you stay on mic. And if you lay back, just pull it towards you, man. You can pull, just relax. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can actually lay down and
sure.
Put it down there.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you over the edge.
Yeah.
Tucker, no. And, if you pop him on the head once.
Pop him. There you go.
Hey.
Get away.
And he knows this means no.
Yeah.
And if you put your hand like this, he knows it means come.
Okay.
So if I'm sitting up here and I go like this, he'll jump my lap. If I go like this, he'll stay down, usually.
Do you do those same rules for consent in the bedroom?
No, we get written consent or drunk. Yeah. Those are the two options.
All right.
we'll get to that. Before we get out of here, we got to talk about dating because I always do that because it's my favorite subject.
Yeah. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, all right.
I just know how to get wives. That's a wife.
I'd take anything.
Yeah.
So anyhow, tell me how you got into comedy.
Yeah.
And when? What year? I guess I asked you what year.
The first time I was ever on stage was 420. Not that I smoke weed or anything like that, but
it's memorable.
Yeah. 420, 2016. So not that long. I just celebrated my 4-year comedy anniversary.
Really?
Yeah. Yep,
Oh, so I was in it a couple years before you showed up.
Yep. I remember the first time I met you. It was at Hamlin Pub. Billy Reno show. Tina was on it.
Actually,
Adam Herzl, Sam Rager, you, I, Billy.
Yeah,
Great show.
It was hilarious. I remember that.
Yep. Yeah.
Actually, the biggest compliment I ever got in comedy was from you.
Really? What was that?
We were up at Melissa Hager's Rising Star competition.
You killed it that night.
I had a great set. I don't know why. I fooled them. But you came, when I came backstage, you said, I was off rehearsing and I had to come out and find out what was going on because you got like 3 applause breaks and a wahoo break. Yeah, they were hollering for a while.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why. Yeah, that was a good night. That's a great room, and Melissa does
amazing.
Yeah, she does a good job too. What a pro show.
Oh, she's fantastic. Yeah, I've done that room a couple more times now too. It's great.
Yeah, I've never been invited back. So.
Yeah. You shouldn't have won it. That's why.
Exactly.
So to answer your question, just 4 years in so far. I have a very immersive personality, you could say.
Yeah.
And I can kind of like mark my life by what historical landmarks of whatever obsession I was in at the moment.
Right. I know you were a high-level bicyclist at one point.
Yeah. So like the majority of my adult life, I raced bikes, and a very singular focus. This was like, and teaching was like, I viewed as like a part-time job when I wasn't riding a bike.
To support your biking.
Yeah. This was before kids. I was dating my wife. My life was pretty basic. I mean, I would go to work and then I'd get on the bike and I'd be on it for 5-6 hours a day, and on the weekend I'd be on the road racing.
What do you think about being a bicycle widow? Because bicycling takes a lot of time.
Sure, yeah.
It's like running. You're going to be gone for quite a while. You aren't going out to ride 5 miles. You're going out to ride 60 miles or something.
Yeah, and I used to be meticulous about logging everything. So as a teacher, our contractual hours for the year were we worked 1,098 hours in a school year. And I would, for about 10 years, I averaged about 1,200 hours on the bike.
Wow.
So
more bike than teaching.
Yeah, and that doesn't include drive time to races and things like that.
Yeah.
So like my job was literally a place I went to recover from when I wasn't riding and racing. So that was a big part of my life. And as you know, with anything you get into and you kind of build a name for yourself, it becomes part of your identity. And it becomes like it's the main thing you know, right? And when my wife and I got married, or we got engaged in 2009, I actually qualified and raced the mountain bike world championships that year.
Wow, where was that at?
That was in Canmore, Alberta, at the Canmore Nordic Center.
How fun was that with all those high-level racers?
Yeah, it was amazing. That in and of itself is a huge story.
I'll bet.
I did all right there. I was 15th out of 150 racers. I was the second highest placed American. But
That's incredible.
But I did not do as well. Like the guy who took second was the guy who I had beat the year prior to qualify for it. So
were you intimidated by the field or by the track? Or
I had a bad day on the bike that day. The elevation was a little higher. It was hard to prepare for it.
What was the elevation?
You peaked out at about like 8,700 feet.
Oh, that's pretty high, though.
It's not too bad, but when you're used to training around here, and then the difficulty of the course was a little challenging, and a lot of the top level guys were used to racing those types of trails that we don't really have around here. But I mean,
but that's still thin air. I lived at over 10,000 feet when I was out in Colorado, and you got to get used to that, man.
Sure. And we did. So my wife and my buddy's wife and both sets of parents, so my wife's parents and my parents flew out there. But my buddy and I drove out because we had so much equipment we had to bring with us.
Sure.
So it was like 2,700 miles, and we did it in 40 hours. And we didn't take more than a 30-minute break. So we had
eating bologna sandwiches in the car.
Yeah, we had all that packed. We had a bag of Ambien, and we just literally one guy would pop an Ambien. We had like a bed on one side of the vehicle. Set an alarm for 8 hours.
But is that the best way to prep for a championship?
It was stupid. So I got there about 48 hours early, and then part of my job was I knew I was going to propose to my wife while I was out there. And
you kind of loaded yourself up.
Yeah, I loaded myself up.
Good God.
Just a lot was going on in my life at the time and stuff.
Sounds like there's always a lot going on with you. It sounds like you pile things on yourself.
Yeah, I don't know if I do it or just...
hold on. You didn't have to propose at that time.
No, you're right. Yeah.
And you didn't have to make it a straight-through drive either. You didn't have to. You could have left one day earlier, which meant you wouldn't have had to take all the drive. I mean, for some reason you thought, this would be a good idea. We'll just jam it all together, and we'll do that too. Yeah, I'll do that too. And while I'm there, the biggest race of my life, that'd be a romantic time to propose. Like...
Part of the problem.
While we're all focused on me and my biking, I'll turn around and go, oh, by the way, do you want to get married?
Part of the problem with me is like if a car goes 180 miles an hour, we're going to drive it 180 miles per hour. So that's maybe...
Well, you're driven. I mean, to compete at that level, like my daughter's in the same boat, you just got to be really driven more than normal people, I think.
Yeah, and I the good thing I did when I was doing all that is I kept a blog, and I was really disciplined about it, and it amassed like a pretty decent following of people who liked it. It was a lot of inspirational stuff and what it all meant to me and like a bigger picture and that sort of thing. And I was so fortunate I wrote down like every race. I wrote stories about preparation, all of that, because I used to race 50, 60 races a year.
I get it. I used to be a runner, and I used to put down every practice, the temperature was out, what the weather was like, how I felt in the first mile, just everything. I logged everything about it because I wanted to go back and kind of review it and see if I was making progress and what the issues were, and if I had aches and pains, where they were at and how we're working those out. Is that really a sprain or something, or is that just something today? And I think if you're going to be really, really, really good, you got to be very self-aware, and the best way to do it is write all that stuff down.
Yeah, and that's a good way to put it, self-aware, because I am not nearly as self-aware now as I was back then.
I can tell by the way you dress.
Well, part of it's you have limited bandwidth. You know what I mean?
And you only can do so much.
Yeah, you have limited bandwidth, and when you have a 4 and a 6-year-old, that's
kids are eating up your bandwidth, man.
They're chewing it all up. Yeah. Yeah, your
Get
brain
off my bandwidth, kid.
Your brain doesn't fire on all cylinders after you become a parent. It's amazing. Yeah. But so I proposed to my wife out there, and racing was such a big part of my life. And a few years later, my wife and I got married 2 years later in 2011, and then about a year into marriage, we decided we were going to start trying to have kids. And we figured, and I should say, in 2011, I had one of my best bike racing seasons I'd ever had in my life. And it was kind of by accident, because I had taken a step back a little bit because I was getting married. But by doing that, I had such a foundation that I had laid in preparation that when I took just the slightest little percentage of pressure off myself, everything like clicked into place and everything started becoming easy.
So the physical stuff was there, but the mental stuff clicked when you relaxed a little bit.
Yeah, the mental stuff started clicking for me about 6 years into racing. Like I wouldn't say my fitness changed as much as my ability to know how to win a race.
You know what? Actually, when my daughter was shooting in the mid 80s in golf, consistently, and we wanted to get her into the 70s. I used to go to every tournament she was in, and she was in a lot, every round she ever played, and I would write down what stroke took par away on that round, and we would review those after each round, which is painful because you want to hear about your good stuff. But if you want to get better, you really got to look at where you're failing because you got to know what to change or improve. But the interesting point was that 75% of her mistakes were mental mistakes. They weren't physical mistakes. They weren't mistakes where she had to go out and practice or get more fit or learn something new as far as hitting the golf ball. She just had to make a different decision at a different time. And with a clearer mind and a better perspective, and just make a different decision, just calm down. Okay, we'll take this little penalty here, but we'll make it up someplace else. It made her not press as hard, and actually she ended up golfing a lot better. Sounds like in bicycling, you're doing the same thing.
Yeah, certainly. And I would say that 90% of the races I won them in the parking lot before I even lined up.
Isn't that funny? And that's what they say. Yeah, 90% absolutely.
of the ones I lost them before I ever even lined up.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. So in 2011, I had an incredible season, and when you race, or even when you do comedy or anything like that, when you have a great set or you win a race, like you revel in that for like a few hours, and then all of a sudden your mind switches to what's next.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
What is going to be bigger, and what is going to be better, and what is going to be a bigger feeling than what I have now. It's like a drug, right?
Right, absolutely.
And I spent my entire race career like chasing whatever the next thing was.
Right.
And I lived in the future for so long, I forgot what it was like to
be present.
And when I had that really good season, I think I won 13 races that year, and I podiumed on 21 other ones.
Good God,
and it just everything was in place.
Yeah.
And I got.
You had to be the guy on the circuit. You had to be the guy to beat on the circuit, I would guess. At that point,
I was
right?
the guy then, yeah. But just like anything, that can be a flash in the pan.
Nobody stays on top forever.
Yeah,
but it's kind of fun to get up there, isn't it?
Sure, yeah. You learn stuff though too, because you learn how people's perspective of you changes. When you're the guy who's like just there but not there, you got a lot of more friends than when you're the guy who...
You know what? I found that was true in business too, because when I was struggling, didn't have any living room furniture, doing the best I could, I had tons of friends, but as soon as I moved onto the golf course, put the Corvette in the driveway as a second car, I was surprised how many really good friends were resentful. It's almost like familiarity breeds contempt. Like, you're no better than me. I know you. We're like the same. Why are you getting all that? And I'm like, because I'm busting my ass. I'm doing things you aren't doing, dude. But regardless, you lose friends when you're successful. And that's sad. And it's not because you're snooty or aloof or looking down. It's because some people don't like to watch their friends get more than they have, I think.
Yeah, and it got a bad taste in my mouth, too, because this was a sport that I viewed with incredible reverence and almost like spiritual to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And it made me, when I finally stepped back from it, I spent about 2-3 years resenting the sport and how much it took from me when you realize how many hours there are in the day when you're not on top of a bike the entire time.
Right. Do you see the same thing in comedy? Do you?
I don't think I've gotten there yet.
You aren't good enough for people to resent what you're doing.
No, I don't think so. Not at all. And it's just comedy's a different beast too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that takes place. Yeah.
I think there's people that resent it when you get a gig or a show that they want, but I don't really understand it because I don't think it's a zero-sum game. I don't think my success hurts you. Matter of fact, if we're friendly, I think my success may help you.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so that's the odd thing about comedy, I think.
Yeah, because with racing, there's one guy who can make it to the line first.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
you get on a show, like a 3-comic pro show, and everyone kills.
Yeah.
That's a synergistic great thing.
Yeah.
Right?
I totally agree. Well, you were going to tell me how you got into comedy.
Yeah, okay.
How you made the switch.
No, it's a long story.
It is a very long story. Good thing this is a long podcast.
Yeah, and in order to explain it, I have to kind of give you a glimpse into my personality.
No, I got it.
Yeah, so I had a great season in 2011, and all of a sudden the switch flipped in my brain where I was like, okay, I think I'm done now. It's like Forrest Gump. It's like Forrest Gump when he just stops running and he's like, I think I'll go home now. Right? Like I didn't have, I finally reached satiation.
Yeah,
right?
I did the same thing with stand-up comedy. I got to a point and said, well,
Yeah.
I've traveled the country. I've done stand-up all over the place.
Yeah.
I don't know I'm going to get much better than I am. And what's next?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like looking for the challenge more than being there.
Yeah.
It's the challenge of getting there, I think, is the drug.
Yeah. Yeah. I think whatever I was looking to like prove to myself or to learn about myself, I did. And then I felt like I got to a spot where I wasn't learning anything new. And I was just creating the same reality over and over again.
Right.
And the allure of it wasn't as much.
Right.
And then
Isn't that funny?
like the allure of like doing well in a race or winning wasn't there anymore. So that's when my wife and I started talking about having kids. And it wasn't because I was sick of bike racing. It was because...
No. Well, there's always
Yeah.
an allure to that, I would think.
Yeah. So we... Yeah. So we started talking about that. And I voluntarily stepped away from bike racing because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to be as involved. I did it before we even got pregnant because I'm like, I don't want this shift to be... Like, I don't want to resent my kids because they're going to be born and then all of a sudden I'm going to stop doing what I like to do.
I love the way young fathers say we got pregnant like you were knocked up too.
Sure.
A lot of people do that. Yeah. I'm taking credit for that. Like,
Hey,
I was involved. And I am pregnant now.
It took us a year to get pregnant.
We got pregnant.
I put in a lot of hard work, Ted.
Yeah, I bet you did. Congrats on that.
Yeah, I didn't want to be doing that for a year, you know?
Who wants that workout? What a regimen.
Sure.
I got to get up and do this again? All right.
Yeah, so I voluntarily stepped back from racing, and like I said, I resented the sport for a while, and then I just went through.
Was that because of the people, really?
No, it was part of it. It was a combination of that, and then just when I realized how many hours there were in the day, I'm like,
it ate up a lot of your life.
yeah, like. Maybe I should have like cleaned my gutters out over the last 10 years or something. Like, there's a whole world functioning around here right now.
Who knew?
Yeah, I didn't know that. So I took a step back, and we ended up, you know, we got pregnant.
Yes.
And we had the child, and
How was your delivery? Was it painful?
my wife's a fucking rock star.
Yeah. But how was it for you? Was it painful for you emotionally watching her? It must have been hard on you.
Well, we did it at a hippie birthing unit where, like,
In a bathtub kind of thing?
there was a tub involved. The kid didn't come out in the tub. It didn't look like the tide at Omaha Beach or anything like that.
God.
But,
Oh, my gosh.
But I saw some things that I'll never unsee.
Yeah, isn't that sad?
Yeah.
I don't think men should be made to witness that.
You know what's funny about this is we hired a doula, which I didn't even know what that was.
A what?
A doula is like a birth coach.
Oh.
It wasn't enough to have a midwife. We had to
Oh, you had that too.
Oh yeah, and then we had to spend.
Well, hold it. I coached my wife. I was taught to. What were you doing?
She was like the head coach, and I was like the assistant coach. Yeah.
You're getting the wet towels or the hot towels or something. Good job.
Yeah. So we had where was I
It
even
sounds
going
like
with
you
that?
were pregnant all through the pregnancy, but when it came to delivery, it kind of pushed you aside.
Yeah. Well, here, this is why it happened too. Like, the majority of my wife and I's relationship, a lot of focus was on me because I was bike racing and all that.
Yeah.
So when she was having a kid, we're like,
this has got to be about
all
her.
the focus is going to be on you.
Sure, and that's great.
Yeah. So we hired a doula. The doula, like 2 weeks before my wife was going into labor, goes, "Hey, I got a friend of mine who wants to get into the birth photography business."
Oh, Lord.
And I'm like, what is
there such a thing?
I didn't know what that was. So
why would they do that?
I don't know. So she goes, she's willing to shoot your birth for free if you'd like her to. And my wife thought, oh yeah, that'd be a beautiful moment to capture.
Oh no.
We thought, and she goes, no, she'll be real discreet. She'll be off to the side. You won't even know she's there. We thought
she's not off the side. She's centered, dude.
We thought it was gonna be like
little snapshot,
a Vanity Fair type thing. Like we got the photos after.
Oh my God.
And we opened them up on the computer. My wife hit eject on the DVD and cracked it in half.
Oh. See, she didn't want to watch that either.
There's a reason why your mind makes you forget about all that stuff.
Yes, yeah.
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 So,
oh, God.
back to the answer to the question, because I feel like this is probably the longest
Answer I've ever had. Yeah, it
given
is. No, that's good, though. Who wants to listen to me talk?
Sure.
When we can learn about your life from A to Z. This is great.
This one's going to be Tim Talks Too Much.
Yeah. You can't talk too much. This is great.
So, yeah.
You took a step back. You
We had a
focused on
kid.
your wife. You're having kids.
We had a
and
kid.
you thought, I want to be funny.
And then my wife started to realize, as much as I loved being a father, and I absolutely love being a father, my wife was smart and keen enough and in tune with me enough to realize that when I stopped racing, I just had an enormous void
Yeah, you needed
in
something,
my
didn't
life.
you?
Yeah.
Well, that's your nature. You're a driven
Yeah.
person, right?
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
she's like, I gotta figure out something for him to fill this void.
Right.
And a little bit, rewinding back a little bit, I had an older brother who had passed away. He passed away on my 30th birthday.
How much older was he?
He was 9 years older than me.
Okay.
Yep. And
So he was like a big brother.
He was a
like a
big
teen
brother.
when you were like a little guy that he's, hey,
Sure.
come here, buddy.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah,
Huh?
yep. Yeah, big positive influence in my life. Big into, huge fan of of sports and what they mean to people and how they can elevate someone as a person.
Right. Was he athletic too? Like,
yeah.
was he driven
Yeah.
and athletic? And
Not in his adult life, but all through high school. And
Right.
he was obsessive over sports. He could tell you any stat. He could
Wow.
high school to any sport there. He
like those
just loved it.
broadcasters.
Yeah,
Like those people.
yeah, he would have done well with that. So he had passed away on my 30th birthday, real unexpectedly. This was like, excuse me, this was 3 months prior to the World Championships. That was part of the reason.
Wow, right? You had a lot going
I had
on
a lot
right there.
going, and I got engaged in. I had a
Yeah.
lot going on, and for a moment, I thought about not racing the World Championships because I thought it seems so trivial right now with everything like my
Yeah,
family's
but he
going through.
probably
and
would have been proud of you for doing it, though. You know?
Well, that's what it ultimately came down to. He would have been unbelievably pissed if in high school. I played sports all through high school.
Yeah.
My junior year, I made the varsity team, but the coach pulled me aside. He goes, you made it, but you're gonna be like the 11th, 12th man."
Was it basketball?
And basketball.
Yeah.
And I said, "All right, I'll see you later. I
Ride the pine."
I got a band I play in right now. I like riding my snowboard. I'm not gonna do it anymore." And my brother, I swear to you, my older brother didn't talk to me for like a year after that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So anyway, he would have been pissed if
Yeah,
I
he
didn't
would've.
race it.
He would've,
So
yeah.
I raced it, but I had just my head was all over the place going into the race. And I should also say the type of racing that I was doing was 24-hour solo mountain bike racing. So you're racing a bike for 24 hours straight.
Dude, knowing your ride out to the race, you're an idiot. I mean, who would be sleeping on Ambien in a car for that many hours and then do a 24-hour solo race?
Yeah, you're right.
What's wrong with you, dude?
A lot of things.
I mean, no, honestly.
How long is the podcast?
I mean, and then you're upset you didn't beat the guy who got second place. You can't be. You did everything wrong.
I did everything right in preparation other than the last 48 hours before the race.
I'd say the last week. You should have went there a week ahead of time,
No, you're right.
dude.
You're right.
And you should have delayed the proposal.
It wouldn't make for as romantic of a story today now.
It's all about the story.
So my brother passed away on my 30th birthday a few years back.
And today's his birthday. Didn't you tell me?
Today's his 50th birthday.
So that's really cool.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it is cool. And part of the reason I was allowed to get out of the house today.
Yeah.
Part of the gift to myself today.
Here's the reason why I get to go.
Yeah. So my wife, I had always been a huge fan of stand-up comedy. I loved it. I thought I had the biggest appreciation for it. Even when I was racing, I was the guy who was like...
Did you have a favorite comic or somebody or a couple of them?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, like, I wore the VHS tape out of Bill Cosby himself. Like, that was like so...
Old school.
Yeah. And then, like, around that era, like, I mean, Louis C.K., like, walked on water for me around that era and
Boy,
stuff.
he did some other stuff, though, didn't he? He was the opposite end from Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of things he did you're not supposed to. He talked about doing those things too. So yeah, that was weird. So anyhow,
so I was a huge fan of stand-up.
And
my wife learned about the class at Mark Ridley's. I didn't know anything about the process of stand-up comedy. I didn't know that you could decide to do stand-up and then
just go
stand-up.
do it.
I had no idea. Like, I thought you had to be like picked by the
gods.
The gods of
go to
comedy.
stand-up college.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Some agent's going to say, "Hey, you're an actor. You should do stand-up." You thought you didn't know you could just walk up and go, "I'm going to do this."
Didn't know anything about the process of it. And on my birthday, a little over 4 years ago, my wife said, "Make sure you keep the day open." It was a Saturday. She said, you
think it's a birthday surprise, going to have a dinner or movie or something?
Yeah, I got a big surprise for you. I thought we were going to go to the zoo, to be honest with you.
You kind of did.
For like the 50th time that year. And she said, yeah, keep it open. And the morning of my birthday, she handed me an envelope, and it was for Bill's class.
Comedy 101.
And
Bill Bouchard in Royal Oak.
Yeah.
Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle.
I didn't know anything. I didn't know they had a class. I didn't know who Bill Bouchard was. I didn't know anything about it. And she said, I bought you a stand-up class in 6 weeks. It ends with a performance, and you have to leave for it in 2 hours.
Oh, my God.
And the feeling I had then, Ted, was like the same feeling I had when she first told me we were going to have a kid. Like, I was so excited, but also, like, worried, like, can I do this? Am I going to be able to do it? Like, I know. But so giddy.
Yeah.
And so thankful, too, at the opportunity.
Yeah. And you drove there, and you went to your first class, and you'd never been on mic before, never told a joke in public on that.
Didn't wake up that morning even knowing I was going to do that.
Do you remember who was in your class?
You know, we have... I don't think there's a single person from my class that still does comedy.
Oh, really? Do you remember who hosted your show? Because usually they have somebody that's...
Bill Bouchard hosted it because the guy who was supposed to didn't show up. Oh. I remember Zach Martina closed it out. I remember that.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah.
But there was one guy who was in it. His name was Mike Roden. He was really, really naturally funny. Yeah. But, like... he was like debilitatively shy. And I tried to convince him so much after the class to get out to the open mics with me. And he was so good. But to my knowledge, no one from that class does stand up anymore.
Wow.
However, my advanced class was like a bunch of heavy hitters in it.
Really?
Yeah. Ron Rigby was in it. Cam Rowe.
Yeah.
Marcus Oland.
Was I in the class?
No, I
was in one with Ron Rigby.
A few of them. Yeah, I think you were in the first time he took it.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Well, I took it twice also.
Yeah.
Because, there's so much information. If you're going to talk 2.5 hours, 6 weeks in a row, I can't memorize all that. And it was all business comedy stuff, as well as Joel tells you what you're doing wrong.
Yeah.
Love Bill, but Bill was just kind of a cheerleader. But Joel would actually go, yeah, you can't, you're punching down, or I've heard that joke before, or... he's just giving you really good information, and it just takes a lot to get that in. Now, I know there's some anti-class people, but I thought they were great. What did you think?
Oh, I think it was incredibly beneficial. I loved it. I mean...
do you remember your first set? Do you remember what your jokes were about? Or
yeah, they were... I mean, I think everyone kind of emulates someone when they first start.
Yeah.
I was like a hybrid of like a horrible version of Louis and Daniel Tosh, and like
God.
I remember
that sounds bad just to say that.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's not me at all either.
Yeah.
And like I mean I did well, but I always say, like, it's hard to not do well at a 101 show, right?
Well, yeah, because people are coming to laugh. It's just odd that these people are on stage. So the crowd is giggling just to see these people for the very first time on stage. So there's a lot of laughter.
It gives you a true false sense of what comedy really is.
It does. I remember doing the beginner class with Tina Green, and Tina's really funny. But we did the class, and we all got that false sense of, hey, we're pretty good at this. And then we went out to Joey's in a couple contests. She brought a lot of friends, big tables, 20, 30 friends, and big tables starting the laughter because it's her buddy, Tina Green. And we finally got to a show where she didn't know anybody and she had a bad show and she was shocked. But she'd always performed in front of people she knew, and which is odd. I mean, people that you know to see you on stage doing stand-up, they're going to laugh.
Sure.
You're just, I finally had 4 people come out and see me. In my 6 years, only 6 people that I know outside of comedy have ever seen me perform. And some of my golf buddies decided to show up one time and had never seen me. And I had been in it for a number of years, and I had a couple of pretty good bits. Well, you've seen a couple of my bits. And they were almost shocked. I mean, I got done, I came down, they said, dude, you were fucking funny. I said, I know. I know, I've been doing this a while.
Isn't that a great feeling?
Well, yeah, it's like they were surprised. Like, wow, that actually came out of you. That was kind of interesting. Because people all have this version of you. I'm sure if your people you rode bikes with showed up at your comedy, they go, dude, I can't even believe you're doing this. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I did a show with J. Chris Newberg. I think it was last summer or so. And he's originally from Detroit. He's LA based now.
Right.
And before the show, he sees someone who he used to work with at his last real job before he quit to do comedy.
Right.
And this individual had never saw him perform before.
Right.
And Jay Chris, I don't know if you've seen his act. He does a lot of interaction with the crowd. He's fantastic.
Yeah.
And in the middle of his set, he's just crushing. He has everyone on board. We're all experiencing this together. It's one of those electric nights where the crowd's giving back as much as he's given. And he looked at the woman who I watched him talk to her before the show.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget it because he looked at her right in the eyes and he goes, I'm a lot better at this than you thought I would be, aren't I? And it was
funny because it's true.
It was so awesome.
Yeah.
Because I thought about this was a guy wearing a tie in a cubicle next door to her.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Then 20 years later,
that's hilarious.
Oh, it was such a cool moment.
Oh yeah, it really is. And when it works, it really works. There's nothing quite like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So back to the question, you get addicted, and what backfired on my wife, though, was, and she likes it now because it's kind of become a little more of a legitimate part-time job for me.
And she comes to some of the shows, or has. I've seen her at a couple shows.
Yeah, she comes to, I did a New Year's Eve theater show that she came to, and
cool.
With her family and stuff. The bigger ones that are more important.
Yeah, and you're doing a lot of good-sized shows nowadays, Tim. For only being in 4 years, you're doing really great.
The last year, things started picking up for me.
Yeah.
I felt very fortunate about that. But I got addicted at that 101 show and just kept plugging away at it. But it backfired on my wife because the whole point of it was I can give him this thing
to fill.
That fills this void, but stand up, maybe he'll do it once a month. And he'll do it for 10 minutes once a month.
Yeah.
And
fun little side hobby.
Yeah, she underestimated that it would become
how consuming.
My thing now.
Well, you know what? That's your personality, though. If you're building model planes, it'd become your thing. You'd be off at some model plane place where they're doing special model planes and you're really intense into which plane you're building and some little minute. I mean, I don't think you can take the Tim out of Tim.
No, yeah, it's gonna happen. It's what's funny is my oldest son has that same trait now.
And how old is he?
He just turned 6 years old in April,
and you can see that.
And I think it's so much worse than what I have.
Really?
It's like marijuana compared to the 70s versus now. It's like the same effect, but it'll make you lose your mind so much more now. He's like a version 2.0 of me. And he's so when he gets into something, it is so obsessive, and it's the only he does
driven.
He does this thing where he doesn't sleep. He doesn't like to sleep. Every time he's ever fallen asleep, it's been completely by accident.
Really?
And he does this thing where he'll be.
Will he go to bed at night?
It's like a magic trick to get the kid to sleep.
Did you read my book? I have a chapter.
I did. I did read your book.
Did it help at all?
I got to go back and review it.
That?
Yeah.
You should, honestly, it tells you how to get kids in bed.
Yeah, and you know what? I read all that, and I think, fuck off. You've never met Wyatt.
I'll tell you what. You know what? Bring him to my house. I'll teach him how to go to bed. We actually, when I was first married, we used to babysit for a young gal that got pregnant when she was like 16. Had this jumbo kid who had to be, I'm going to say is like 3 years old. And when she dropped him off, but she didn't have any partner. When she dropped him off, he'd be in dirty diapers, just fresh out of the bed, barely fed him before she dropped him off. She wasn't the best parent. And we said, well, when does he take his nap? She says, oh, he doesn't take a nap. I said, oh, no, he's got to take a nap. He's like 2.5 years old or whatever it was. He said, no, he doesn't take a nap. We were like, no, he's going to be ornery. He's going to be, you're not going to be able to handle this kid unless he has his rest. And he said, well, I can't get him to go down. Well, we put a little program in place. And I swear to God, 2 weeks later, she picked him up. I said, I want to show you something. Watch. Hey, Chris, come here. Nap time, buddy. And that kid ran over to the closet, opened up the closet, grabbed his special pillow, threw it up on the bed, went around to the other side, climbed up on the bed, pulled down the covers, got under the covers, laid on the pillow, and said, I'm ready.
Are you free tomorrow, Ted?
Bring him. Dude, bring him. Now you have to trust me.
This beautiful studio you have here isn't going to look like this.
I may have him chained up. Yeah. No, actually, you know what? I did write a book on parenting. Look out, I'm parenting here, a survival guide for the single parent. And I broke all this stuff down into really simple chapters. But the neat thing was I had lousy parents. And I thought, I don't know how to parent. So I didn't tie myself down to something that didn't work. And usually the mistake parents make is they say, this is how we do it, and it's not working, and they continue to do it instead of saying, today we're changing. The kid's going to hate it. But they also, parents get to a position where they try and negotiate with kids. And I've never seen a kid that is anywhere between 1 and 7 years old, and you negotiate with him and he hits himself in the forehead and goes, oh my God, sure. Of course you're right. Yeah. Their argument, their position is no. That's their argument. There's no logic behind it. So all the logic and reasoning, here's why we did it before, and here's why we'll do it again, and here's the merits to my side, you're wasting your breath. There's no sense doing that. My grandmother was great at this. Honestly, she was probably the best parenting role model I had, and only babysat me occasionally, but when I used to bitch to my grandmother, she'd let me bitch, and then I'd go on, and she'd go, uh-huh. And I'd get done, and she'd go, now go do it. I mean, she would not even address. She'd listen and acknowledge that she's listening, and then she'd just go back to what she said. Because, and at that point, and so you try and throw a fit, then you're crying and screaming, and she's not getting emotionally upset, and she'd go, God, I guess you feel really bad. Let's take you in your room and you cry in there. Come on and back out and we'll talk some more when you get done crying. And she'd take me in her room and well, crying in my room doesn't help at all. So that doesn't work. So she was really calm and really stayed the course. And I wrote about this in the book I frickin' gave you to help you, Tim.
Yeah. I have a master's degree, Ted, in with a component of behavior analysis. So yeah. I know a thing or two. But
but you read books by people that weren't like me.
Oh, sure. But he's a wild kid. One thing he does, so when he'll be going to bed, he'll be talking to you about something, and then he'll fall asleep on whatever subject he's talking about. He's done this more than one time where he wakes up, and the minute he wakes up, he starts right back up with what he was talking about.
That's hilarious.
So we brought him to a neurologist who specializes in sleep studies and everything. They did a sleep study on him because, like, as a baby, he was sleeping 5 hours a night and getting by on it. And
sounds like he's got special things going on.
Yeah, so we brought him to this neurologist. They did a whole study on him, everything. And doctor comes out and he goes, yep, nothing's wrong with him. He's all fine. He goes, he's what we call a short sleeper. And I'm like, you're a doctor? That's all you got to tell me? I could have told you he's a short sleeper. And he goes, yeah, he's what we call a short sleeper. He goes, he's got certain people are born with really short circadian rhythms. He goes, I work with a surgeon like that. You can call him at 3 a.m. He'll be in doing surgery and be as sharp as can be.
Wow.
He goes, it'll probably drive you nuts right now. He goes, but it might be the thing that makes him really great at something later too.
Oh God.
So, yeah.
Short
We gotta live with that, with a short sleeper.
Well, you should do a bit about that, dude. That's hilarious. He's a short sleeper.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, that's our show for the day. And you know what? Tim might be living with a short sleeper, but he is a very long talker. Believe it or not, we are only halfway through the interview. So we will have a part 2 with Tim. Tune in for that. You know, he's one of those guys that I just got a feeling might make it really big someday. So tune in and see what else he has to say. And as for me, if you're enjoying the show, share it with your friends. I'd appreciate that. And for clips of all my interviews, so you can figure out which one you want to listen to, go to Instagram to TED Talks Too Much. And also you can find me on YouTube. And we're going to start filming the interviews. That might be interesting, so you can watch us. Also, I got my good buddy Billy Reno coming back. As a special treat, we got a lady coming in. I'm going to do a meet and greet on my podcast. That's right, it's a lady I've never met before. She's agreed to come into the studio, and we'll see how that goes. And you'll be able to listen in real time to how I do on a meet and greet. So that ought to be crazy. But in the meantime, be good out there, be kind to each other, and just try to be happy. As always, I'm Ted Moss, and those are my thoughts.